Okay, so the final topic 2.3, is about policies. So organisational policies when enabling remote management. So disaster recovery, an acceptable use policy, a remote access policy, and a data access policy. Okay, disaster recovery is a document that outlines all the processes that must be carried out in the event of a disaster, such as loss of a man-made error, to ensure that the business is able to perform normally within a short amount of time. So anything sort of, power outages, etc., all needs to be put into a disaster recovery plan. Data loss, network outage, all these things need to be included. So that every avenue's been addressed. There always needs to be an emergency contact number. So within your businesses, you should know exactly who to contact in these situations. Data and backup locations need to be in there. So where is data stored? Is it off-site? Is it in the cloud? And how do you, if there is a network outage, how do you again get that data back up and running so the system doesn't see any downtime? So all the key to a disaster recovery plan is to keep business continuing at all times over very limited time loss. So a key point is to keep business running at all times. So if there's a fire, how can you keep your business running and how? So do you move everything to off-site? If there's a flood, the same thing. If there's a power outage, there's a generator. So all these things are included in a disaster recovery plan. So that the goal is to keep business running at all times. Okay, so an acceptable use policy defines what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. So a good acceptable use policy would use words like must and not use words like should. So it's very to the point. It'll define the responsibility of the user and the organisation. So that usually comes down to data. So you've got a responsibility of a user. You're responsible over the customer's data to keep it secure. And the organisation's got a responsibility to you to keep your data secure. It will talk about vandalism. You're not to abuse them, destroy machines in any way. You're not to destroy machines that your tablets, phones, etc. And what sort of happens if you do break them? Is there a financial cost to you, etc.? It'll define what is an acceptable website to go on, or what is an acceptable company to use your email address with. But now generically, an acceptable use policy will say that your company email and your company machine can only be used for work purposes. Okay, it will also discuss about password policies. You're not to share your password or any details with anyone outside the organisation. You shouldn't be sharing your password with anyone. And these are sort of like situational questions you might get, where you've got to select the best answer for that scenario, and the keywords will be in the question. Okay, so access control. So the principle of least principle. So you only need to access what you need for your job. So managers generally have read-write access, and general employees have read access, so they can only read a document. They can't change the document. And you also might just have marketing team just being allowed to see marketing documents, engineering allowed to see engineering documents, and sort of marketing not being allowed to see engineering documents, because there's a sort of security of data there. And sort of going back to, you only need to see what you need to see to do your job. Okay, so with remote access, you want to be protecting your endpoints. So protecting the devices, and policies in place to sort of allow that access to be visible. So you need to know who has access to a remote system. So who has access to your remote servers, or your remote access servers. So it can be restricted by IP pools. or it can be configured through security groups. So again, does everyone need, question might be, does everyone need to have remote access? Well, no, only the people that need to be working remotely need to access them, that service, or people who need to access certain parts of the system may be restricted via a remote desk access policy. Okay, then you've got VPNs. VPNs is an old technology. It requires a very good connection because how they're designed, with a sort of encrypted tunnel. If it's the connection's dropping, then it thinks it's under attack from DDoS attacks, so the connection's lost. So the quality of service in a VPN is not great. So the alternatives could be sort of the new applications like Silo, which isolates the browser from the local IT environment, and it's cloud-based. So, the remote access solution is not always a VPN.